Hey guys, can you believe it? It's been 5 years. A lot has changed in 5 years. Um, 5 years ago, we didn't even know football was going to be played in the upcoming year. It's kind of funny how life has made a full circle. Nick and I kind of came together right before COVID and the shutdowns. And we were a little concerned, we had a lot of momentum going schematically and weight room wise. We kind of wanted to not lose that edge. So he said, do you mind putting together a presentation, 20 minutes? He was at Pidskin or something. I don't know what he was doing before, but he was recording online clinics and kind of said, I want to do this for myself. I was very honored to be his first video. We had a lot of success in that video. I think it hit over 1,000 pretty quickly. When he asked me to do the 5 year reunion, this was a no-brainer. A little about me is I'm no longer really coaching anymore. I kind of stepped more in a volunteer role. I'm an accountant now. Went and got my degree in it. Kind of took a career path a little bit different than I ever initial thought when I thought in 5 years. It kind of gave me a unique perspective. For a couple of years, I didn't really even coach at all. I was able to go watch a bunch of games, go to a bunch of practices, stay in touch with a lot of coaches, and go to spring ball with the um, connections I made coaching high school and college in my brief time coaching, and just was able to kind of get a broader scope of how teams are ran, and you know, and it kind of inspired me to make this presentation. Just my humble opinion, and but I think a lot of times there can be a disconnect between offense, defense, and even special teams. I think it's really important how to match your scheme with your identity. And this goes to offense and defense. This is the full scope. This is kind of maybe for a first time head coach or even a coordinator that's coming over, taking their first job to an already established staff. But even if it's a first time job anywhere for everyone. Something I feel passionate about. This is just me watching probably 100 high school football games over the last 3 years and practices and college and NFL. And I think it's a very common mistake for average teams that, you look at some dudes and you're like, man, they got some tasks out there, but they're just not, it's not being put all together. So hopefully this helps. And yeah, so we'll kind of dive right into it. Got my little background. I coached at Tippecanoe High School right out of high school. My head coach, Joel Derry, well, not my head coach, but he was my defensive coordinator and some position coach at my alma mater, Greenham High School. And he took the head coaching job basically right when I graduated high school. And I kind of went up there and helped coach O-line and D-line. Eventually, I morphed into an O-line inside linebacker coach, and which led me to get my first defensive coordinator job at Fairborn, which I was there for about 3 years. And then I parlayed that into getting into college ball for a year at Wittenberg University here in Springfield. And now I kind of got done with that. Just from a time aspect of things, I wanted to hang out with my mom and my sister a little bit more. I hadn't spent a lot of time with them, and just wanted to buy a little bit of time back. A lot of my friends were getting married, having kids. And it was time for me to maybe find something that fit my long-term goals in that regard a little bit better, be more present. But really, I'm just going to talk about how to match everything. And I think, when you talk about culture, there's kind of different things. And obviously, you got behavior, which is really the unity of the culture, right? It's the backbone. It's who you are on and off the field. It's really what drives everything. But I mean, in order to have something that drives you, you got to have values, whether it's trust, commitment, love, family, do your job. I mean, everyone has different values that they believe how it should be. And I think once you kind of identify the values, it basically kind of drives your behavior. Um, but the one thing that's the missing thing, I think behavior and value are very obviously common and people study it. This is a problem really, and even in the workforce, right? How many times have you gone to a place where, their core values are hung everywhere, and, you know, but you watch them and there's not a lot of clarity in the mission. And I think this is kind of what it comes down to the head coach. And, at the end of the day, you have to be able to answer what you want your team to be like. And this has got to be from the staff down. So if I'm the head coach, I got to hire a defensive and offensive coordinator that are aligned with what I want my team to look like. And then it's their job to sell to the assistant coaches what the alignment of the team is going to be. And that's usually their side of the ball. So if it's a special team coordinator, you probably got the whole staff. If it's defensive coordinators, you got your 1 to 7 coaches, depending on the size of your team, and same for offense. So I think gaining clarity and getting everyone on the same page from the staff down is important. And if you don't have one dude in alignment, that's a hill, and it's going to hurt your team in the long run. So, because adversity is going to hit, whether you're a lead or you're taking over a struggling program. And if someone's not aligned and adversity hits, that's kind of a true marker of your culture. Mike Vrabel kind of touched about it in his little press conference to take the Patriots job. He's like, everyone's got a good culture when everyone's doing well, but when things are starting to struggle, and you got a couple dudes that aren't aligned on staff, they're going to break the team down, and that's a huge issue. So once you kind of get those 3 squares, it kind of comes down to execution, and this is kind of what I'm going to talk about a little bit most today. How are you going to plan on teaching? So, I'm going to talk about defense. That's kind of like my background, and I think the first question any head coach or really defensive coordinator got to answer: who do you want to be on defense? And really, there's kind of 3 things that come to mind. You're going to be an aggressive team, a bend or break team, or a kiss team. And to me, when I see aggressive, I mode that they're blitzing, they're bringing 5-man pressures, 4-man pressures, if they're 3 downs, even 6 and 7-man pressures. The post-snap movements are really kind of what dictates it for me, because you're changing gaps post-snap, and that's usually pretty aggressive, right? I mean, you're talking. I've been around teams that coached it where our D line would stick 1 or 2 gaps over. So if you were 4 down, we would have the DN almost crash into the A gap, because we're bringing 2 blitz guys on that to throw the B and C gap. That's even if you're 1 high, rotating back to 2 high and running simulated pressure. And really, the basis of an aggressive defense is they want explosive plays over everything. Um, they'd rather have a 6-yard loss over a 5-yard running game, and everyone does for that matter. But like when you're bend or break, you're going to sit in 2 high, and you're okay with a 5-yard gain, 3-yard gain. You're okay with them sitting. You're sitting there 2 high, keep everything in front of you. You're okay with a 6-yard hitch, because they're not going to run it. They're going to have an offensive penalty, so like a holding call, or false start, illegal shift. That's going to put them behind the chain. So, and then obviously they tighten up in the red zone, and then you have to keep it simple, people. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. So, a lot of times that's that 4-4 cover 3. There's a amazing program called Trotwood back in the Dayton area, and they would just run cover 0 and just gap out everything, because they just had athletes. Never wavered. Didn't matter if they were playing. They would have played Ohio State or Wittenberg, or a bad program or elite program. They never wavered from who they were. So And I think there's nothing wrong with any of these threes. I've always been in the mindset of there's really no bad scheme. There's ways that you would rather it be done, but again, there's no bad scheme if everyone's on the same page in line teaching it. Um, but you got to identify which one of these three you want. So, and that kind of should coincide with what the offense wants to do. And as an offensive coordinator, what is your philosophy? Are you fast or you're controlling? And from fast tempo teams are going to be everything is fast. You're on the ball, you're snapping it, you're getting a million different formations. Um, if RPO bubble screens, then are shot heavy, and they want explosive play. They want the 4 plays, 92-yard drive. But then you got your control on offenses, which can be done out of spread, but it can be done out of mostly like, your run-oriented teams, your slot T teams down in Texas, to wing T, flex bone. But they want to control the clock, run the ball, and make them defend as most plays possible. So, I used to have a coach in my early days. Joe would talk about when he was calling the offense. We were a big jet sweep team. And he was like, a 6-yard gain is going to turn into a 20-yard gain in the fourth quarter because that's how controlling we were going to be and wear them down. So, again, there's really no bad way, whether you want to be fast or controlling. You just have to be identifying. And this is kind of where, when I'm talking about next is, where is the clarity? Is how do you match the type of philosophies together to make a unifying team? And one of the hardest decisions you're going to have to make is you can't do that. You want to do everything. If you're a bend don't break, you still want to go 3-and-out every single time. You want to have 7 turnovers a game. If you're a triple option team, you'd love to have 80-yard runs all the time. And if you are even a fast spread oriented, we're going to get as many plays in as possible, line up as fast as possible. That's fine. But on the contrary, you're probably not going to be okay with 3 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards, 5 yards, 2 yards. So you cannot have everything. Well, coaching would be easy, right? So I think it's kind of one of those things where how do we match our teams to make the most unified team possible? And to me, it really comes down to, if you're an aggressive defense, it has to be paired with a fast tempo, right? Because you want to get the ball back in 5 or 6 plays, whether it's a turnover, short field, kind of create a sudden change situation, and then let the tempo create that urgency for the defense, and it kind of parlays into one another. And if your bend don't break philosophy on defense, that usually goes well with a triple option team or wing T, split T, whatever it is. And Kiss kind of does fit well into there as well. Because even though you're not bend don't break necessarily with maybe four cover 3, they're going to line up and they're going to play their game, and it's going to be more of a, we're going to out physical you. And I think the number one thing that bothers me is, I'll watch a team in high school and they're a triple option team, but their defense is like a 3-3 stack. Listen, great scheme, both of them are awesome. But sometimes when you're blitzing a lot and you're playing aggressive defense, explosive plays are going to happen. If you bring in 6 people, and one guy misses a tackle on the back end, which is always going to be a possibility when you're one-on-one, you're going to give up a big play. You got to be okay with that if you're an aggressive defense, because you're going to get 4 or 5 turnovers, and you're going to create situations where it's going to be 2nd and 17 because you caught them on a great blitz call. But the caveat is if you're an aggressive team with a more of a controlling offense, you're putting a lot of pressure on the wing T to score 45 points, and that's not what that offense is designed to do. And sometimes, if you're giving up a couple big plays and if you're down 14-0, now you're kind of causing the offense to deter away from their identity and culture. And that's a problem, right? And then another one would be if it's a bend don't break and aggressive offense, well then we're kind of in a problem because if if you're aggressive and sometimes when you go up tempo, you're gonna have a bad series. You have two drop passes, it's 3rd and 10, and you go 3 and out, and then the defense is right back on the field. You know, they're gonna take the 6-yard hits, and they might give up 3 or 4 first downs and force a punt again. And theory, you're okay, right? Oh, okay. So it's still 0-0. But like over the time, the defense is gonna play 65 snaps and your offense might only have like 26 snaps. So then now you're running into the issue of your defense in a tight game is not going to be able to get a stop when they need it to. I think when it's the bend don't break aspect of it is, you want that wing T team to be up 14-7, 21-7 late in the game, and you're forcing that offense to push the ball down the field a little bit more than they want. You get them a little bit more impatient, and the offensive coordinator can make a bad play call, so to speak, and throw a call for version of cover 4 or 2 read situation and, get interceptions. So, um, again, they have to match. And I know in the course of a game, if you're an aggressive defense and a fast offense, your fast offense just might not be your day. And, it might struggle and vice versa. The aggressive defense might give up a lot of points and didn't do what it needed to do. But you're in sync, you're in line. And I think at the end of the day, when that happens, you're still more unified because there's no tension among the offense and defense. So I think keeping that unity in terms of crisis is important because, again, aggressive and bend or break offense and defense, it might work for 4 games if you're better than them, but it's not going to work when all things are equal. If you're playing your rivalry game week 8 with a playoff spot or a conference title on the ropes and you aren't matching and things aren't going to go well as planned because you're facing an equal or possibly even slightly better talented team, when you're not unified moving forward together and match, then that's kind of where you start to see a really good team go that should be 8-2 go 4-6. And I understand there's circumstances that go beyond X's and O's. But again, I think it's a very important thing that we need to be able to do is how can we align everything under one arrow and move forward? No tension. And I think the biggest mistakes I see with staff is if you don't align, then there's resentment for it, and you're just like, oh, here we go again. And I think that kind of pushes off onto the players, which then pushes off to the team, their teammates, and it's kind of like you can see it on a Friday night, and it's something that I feel like it's fixed, and a lot of people do make that adjustment, but it's a very common occurrence, and I think it's because you know you want everyone wants to be able to have that goal line stand and have that unifying culture moment. It's not that you can't do it in aggressive defense, but you can't want to bend don't break in a fast. I know I'm just kind of repeating myself, but it's kind of a repetitive mistake I see among peers, and I think in order um, to be truly aligned, culture is so much bigger than your core values. They have to morph into one thing on the field too. And The only way that it can really survive any kind of adversity is if you simply are aligned X's and O's. And again, this goes to special teams too. If you're an aggressive defense and aggressive offense, then you need a special team. You should have swinging game. You should have fake pumps. You should have exotic pump formation. You should have motions on them. There should be so many different stuff that you make the other team and really, quite frankly, maybe give you numbers to, you know, get the other team from chasing points. But on the contrary, if you're a bend don't break team, then you should be. We're gonna line up and max protection punt, and we're gonna punt it, and we're gonna pin them if we don't. If and we're gonna play the field position battle. And it's not that aggressive teams don't want to do that, but it's to the point where if you can't just be conservative, aggressive, conservative. You can't just be conservative, aggressive, aggressive. It has to be aggressive, 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 or conservative, conservative, conservative. And um, the kids see that, and I think we don't give kids enough credit for how smart they are. And um, I've been around, on a spring practice at some high level places, Division I school, and they're just like the kids are just like, I don't understand why the game's on the line, and you know things are tightening up, and the aggressive coach will tighten it up because the offense is more of a controlling team, and they're just like, we're not playing our game. I'll sit in a scrimmage, and they're like, the offense is kind of going 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, and the blitzes aren't getting home, or maybe you just guess them wrong, and then all of a sudden you get away from your identity and just say, well, we're just gonna line up and 4-2-5, cover four, and stop it for 7 yards, and that's all fun and games, but it's an issue that persists all the way up to the NFL, and it's just something I felt passionate about. Unfortunately, I don't have really any scheme stuff, and or film to show you. That's don't really have huddle assets really anywhere and all that good stuff. But I think that's kind of what I was wanting to get at. Really, just after that, I didn't really feel like making slides on it because high school, college is just different because like you don't really have to deter from your scheme too much because you can recruit the personnel that you want. So if you're a 4 down team, you kind of have a marker of like, I want my, if you're Division III, 6'3", 230 defensive end, you're 6'1", 270 D tackles. The higher level to go, like if you're at Ohio State or Alabama, you want your edge players at 6'6", 250. It's a different game. So in high school, if you want to be 3 down or 4 down space in, if you want to, I think it really kind of, you got to have a big toolbox so that you can cater to your personnel. So if you want to be 3 down, but you don't have maybe the D lines to do it, then you need to maybe kind of morph into like a 3-3-5, 50 base type stuff up front and slant your D line pinch. If you're smaller and quicker, and if you're bigger, then you can kind of run tight front. If you have really good DBs that can play cover 3, then maybe you're going to be a fire zone heavy team because they're long. They can play 2 in a zone. They can read fast, but if maybe they're not, you're going to run into some kids that are maybe not as good at cover 3, but they're really good at man coverage. So then your 6-man pressure turn into man coverage on the back end of it. So it's just kind of one of those things where um, you have to be able to adjust your scheme. If you're a wing T team that ran jet really well, and then you kind of got a little slower, can't run jet as well, then you got to be able to morph into buck sweep and morph into a little bit more of a power game. So just things of that nature. Make sure you always match your scheme with your personnel. I mean, there's nothing that kind of irks me more than I see a team that's trying to run jet sweep, they're just not getting the edge, and the coaches are, well, that's my bread and butter. Well, I get it, but you don't have to do to run the bread and butter. It kind of hurts. So never be afraid to have a big toolbox, and it might not be in your arsenal that year. And but if you run it, you might need it, but in a course of a year. But it allows you to be more flexible and a case of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that's kind of the important aspects of it. Um, but yeah, one thing I always took pride in is I had an answer to everything. But I also wanted to be able to put my kids in the best position possible. So I didn't want to ask the kid that wasn't good in cover three to play cover three. So my first year we ran a lot of 2 week quarters. My second year we had some dudes on the back end, and we were able to run cover three a lot better. We were able to run fire zones a lot better and man coverage. So I was able to do a lot more things. Um, and don't be afraid to add in certain packages on defense. Don't be afraid to put a nickel in. You might have a sophomore that he might not be ready to play inside linebacker 50 snaps a game, but he can come in a 4-2-5 situation, play the overhang, have one rule, one job on third down and 8, and that's the coverage. You're not really changing anything, but you might have an outside linebacker that's not great in space, but a good pass rusher and run defender. So you can kind of make him a stand-up outside linebacker type in a 4-2-5. Slide in your DNs, double threes, and get a good four-man pass rush. So, anyways, beside the point, this is my info. I don't have a Twitter anymore, or X, whatever they call it. I don't have a blue sky. The easiest way to reach me is probably email or Instagram. You can just shoot me a follow. I'm an open book. I love talking ball still. I study it religiously still. Um, I always want to keep learning. So if you want to challenge me on something and will gain clarity, don't be my guest. So if you want me to take a look at film and kind of see or evaluate, this is here to help you. You can take this information as you wish. So it's just an honor. And, I made the joke with Nick. I wanted to make this, you know, when we decided we were going to start making these videos and podcasts, and before it turned into Coach Bandstra YouTube, and we said we got to keep it under 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Make it quick because no one wants to sit and watch a video for an hour. So my info's here. I'm always accessible. And I appreciate everything you guys have done over the years, pouring into me. Even more awesome what you've done to make Coach Bandstra YouTube the way it is today. I think it's an epic thing that you guys have done, and I think Nick has done a great job growing the game and giving people platforms that might not have gotten it elsewhere. So, again, thank you, and don't be afraid to reach out. And yeah, so, and if you want my cell phone number, you can probably get it from Nick or just reach out to me. Didn't feel I put my cell phone number out on YouTube. So, guess we got a lot of scam calls. So, but yeah, thank you. And again, don't be a stranger. And thanks for everything, guys.